Welcome and thank you for joining us today for another version of the Leadership Café, where we talk to extraordinary people leading remarkable businesses. We're your hosts. I'm Richard Citron.
And I'm Michael Couch. Before we get too far along and meet our special guest for today, we want to make sure we thank our sponsor, Vaco. Vaco is a global talent solutions company, and we really appreciate their support for the Leadership Cafe. Very excited to have as a special guest today Stephanie Doliveira from Sheetz, where she's the Vice President of Human Resources. Stephanie, thank you for joining us, and welcome to the cafe.
Oh, it's great to be with you guys today.
I hope you had
Hi,
your coffee.
Stephanie. I brought my Sheetz cup with me, so I'm ready to go.
I so appreciate that. I'm glad we have a couple Sheetz freaks here with us today.
You betcha. You betcha.
So we want to hear about Sheetz, of course, and about the business, and we want to hear about more about your leadership journey and how you've gotten to the position where you are. So tell us a little bit about Sheetz, because we have a global audience here, so not everybody knows. Not everybody's a Sheetz freak as we are. So fill us in and more about your leadership journey.
Thanks so much. Sheetz is a large convenience retailer based in the Northeast Mid-Atlantic. We have 620 stores roughly.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, throughout 6 states in the Mid-Atlantic, and we are family owned and operated, which has just been so fantastic to have this family named Sheetz, to have this passion to deliver great customer service in these really beautiful convenience stores. And we've been in business since 1952, and the family is still very involved in running the business. I'll share more about that later, but that has really played a part in our culture, in our values, and how we lead as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
I've been with the company almost 20 years. March 1st will be 20 years.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it's funny. I started out with Sheetz because they were a client of mine. I was practicing labor and employment law. They were a client, and I'm just so impressed with their innovation, with their community involvement, and just how they ran the business. And so I approached someone at Sheetz and said, do you think you might have a position for me? And they said, sure, we have a position for you. And I was very fortunate to be hired on 20 years ago in an entry-level HR position. And I've been very blessed to work my way up to be leading the HR function. And we now have 21,000 employees.
Wow.
And growing tremendously. So it's been a little bit about my journey at Sheetz.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
I love the fact that you initiated that. So many people, I think, in their career wait until something happens, or make an application. But you're going out there and doing that 20 years ago. Now you're an attorney by training.
That's right.
So you brought some great expertise already, as I'm sure that they appreciated it and were welcoming having you on board.
Well, we had a relationship, so I had been handling some of their legal matters, and I think so much of business is about relationship, or I think successful business is about good relationships and trust, and so we'd already had that, and honestly, I didn't think much about it because I was just so excited to potentially work for them. And I talk to a lot of young professionals now, and I really encourage them to think about what is it that you want, and then just ask for it. I mean, the worst that they can say is no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's somewhat of a hallmark that we've seen in our discussions with other executives. First of all, their careers are never very simple. There's a lot of movement, moving around between different challenging assignments and different challenging experiences, and you're another great example of that. And it's not sitting back and letting things happen kind of careers either. It's much different than that. And of course, 2020 brought on some even more interesting challenges. So we'd be really intrigued. I've been honored to be able to work with Sheetz for a while, and I'm always impressed by how the organization addresses, you name it, any challenge or opportunity. But what about 2020? What did you see or learn, or as a leadership team at Sheetz, from the many challenges of last year?
Well, I hate to keep using words like unprecedented.
Yes.
Everyone has said it, but honestly, I don't know what other words there are for
Exactly.
it. But when I think back to March 13th of 2020, which was, the day where we all acknowledged that the coronavirus was here and that it was significant and that it was going to be, at that point, I don't think we knew, but we knew it was probably not the flu. When I think back to that day and what we did, it will be in my memory forever. And, I say that because there just was so much uncertainty about the virus. There was so much uncertainty about how this would impact our business. But what I think I'm most proud of and that we learned is that you put a lot of smart people in a room, and you rely on your values, and you rely on expertise of many to really just begin to figure out how you're going to handle this situation. Again, March 13th, it's not like we knew exactly what was going to happen.
No.
Right.
But we came together as a team and talked about what do you think this means for our business? What do you think this means? What should we do next? And that really set into motion how we would handle the next, 10, 11 months, however long we've been in this crazy time. But we've had so many learnings in that time period. And a couple I would like to just highlight, and then you can ask more questions. But
Sure.
We really relied for this last 10 months on our values. And so we have a very strong set of values that have been well established in this family-owned and operated company. And I think the values probably go back to the beginning when Bob Sheetz started this company in 1952. But we've stated our values as the Sheetz DNA.
Yeah.
And there's a series of markers, just like in the scientific DNA. We've established some markers. But at the heart of those values, the heart of our culture is respect. Mm. And that really played a critical role as we were trying to navigate this pandemic. And it showed up in a couple different ways. Respect for our employees and respect for our customers and respect for our community. Mm. That really drives how we do our business day to day, but it certainly took front and center stage during this pandemic. So you really use respect as a filter for all of your decisions throughout this pandemic. And that's been, I think, a great learning for us, is that when you have a strong culture, when you have strong values, you use them in a time of crisis or in a time of great uncertainty.
Stephanie, do you have an example that you could share with our listeners about, how Sheetz manifested this respect with employees or with customers or any of the community?
Absolutely. So with the pandemic, I think certainly the most important thing out of the gate was, how do we keep our employees safe and secure? And so that really became our focus. Certainly we were concerned about the safety of our customers as well, but first and foremost, it was the safety and security of our employees. And that showed up in a couple different ways. It was making the decision that employees needed to wear masks relatively early on. If you remember, there was so much confusion coming out of the media and out of the government about whether or not you should wear masks. But at the moment that we realized this could be something that helps our employees, we made the decision our employees needed to wear masks. And then And then states made the decisions, and counties made the decisions. But relatively early on, we said this is an important component for our employees. So that's around safety. We made the decision to clean and sanitize and disinfect well above what the CDC was even requiring, because again, we didn't know, and we have a long history of food safety and cleanliness. We just really upped our game there. And then the other component for employees was around security, and that came in the form of financial security. So we paid something called WOW Pay, $3 more an hour for our hourly workforce. Yeah, last year in fiscal 2020, we spent $40 million on safety and security for our employees and customers.
Very cool.
And so that's how that played out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and I think it played out for customers and community as well. For community, it was things like sending care packages to hospitals of water and snacks, so we could support the frontline medical community during this crisis.
Mm-hmm. I remember that I think Sheetz was one of the first companies to put the plastic barriers up between customers and cashiers. I remember that coming up pretty early.
Yeah, the plexiglass. We sent our teams out across the whole company, and probably within about 10 days, had plexiglass installed. And I mean, really, they were going to the local hardware stores to buy hardware because, again, we didn't plan for this. You just sort of improvised. But one of the things that continues to amaze me about our company is that we have tremendous employees who are willing to do whatever it takes because their values align with our values. And so when our employees feel like they're being taken care of, they want to take care of the company. And so it's such a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. And key part of why Sheetz has been regularly identified as one of the Fortune 100 best places to work in the United States, which is, it takes a lot of hard work to do. And what you've mentioned, Stephanie, is about culture. Seems to be another theme here on the cafe. It's what you did prior to when you needed a strong culture that made all the difference. So having the Sheetz DNA, having a very clear and aligned culture has makes a huge difference when big challenges come along. And it sounds like that's going to be key as Sheetz continues to grow. I understand you've got quite a target in mind in terms of where the company's headed.
Yeah, absolutely. We've basically decided that we have a solid business model and that we should be growing this company. And so the executive team has set forth some really aggressive plans to grow, not only within the 6 states that we are operating today, but also to look at new markets. About 18 months ago, we announced that we would be expanding significantly in the Columbus, Ohio market. And so we're about to open our first store in Columbus in April. Right. And we'll be putting 50 stores in that market over the course of 3 years. But we're really setting our sights on getting to 1,000 stores. So as I said, we're around 600. Yeah. And if we're going to grow at that pace, we know we have to rely on a strong culture and innovation and our people to get us there.
So plenty of examples of innovation through 2020 as well. I mean, just the idea of doing whatever it takes to get plexiglass in place, and the other, you were sort of leading the pack on what other companies eventually got to. So that's got to be a strong foundation as well.
Yeah, I think that's been a lesson for us also coming out of the events of 2020 is that it is possible to still be innovative during a crisis. And in fact, oftentimes you need to be innovative during the crisis. I mean, you really, it's not time to study everything and make sure everything's right and tight. Like sometimes you just gotta go. And I think a lesson that we're going to be taking forward with us is our team has the ability to be very innovative. And that will serve us very well into the future.
Yep.
I think the other lesson that has come out of this past year has been sometimes you get stuck in old ways of doing things.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's nothing like a global pandemic that shakes you out of that. But we've done a lot of evaluation recently about how people work and how they get work done. And what does that mean for the future? And how do you continue to build upon these lessons of innovation and lessons of how people can get work done into the future? So that's what we're studying right now.
So is there a Sheetz innovation model that you're coming up with, or are you studying innovation to see how it's done and make the application? Because obviously there's been a lot, there's clearly, it sounds like an innovation mindset at Sheetz. Is there some model that you guys have identified for yourselves as part of that DNA?
So we actually have opened an innovation center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so we've had our eye on innovation, really since 1952. It's part of it's really part of the DNA of Sheetz. We call it pioneering, but it really is in the form of innovation. And we talk about innovation, small I and big I. Big innovations that will transform our business, but those smaller innovations, and you might call them continuous improvement, also have a significant impact on the future. We utilize a lot of design thinking principles in our work. And I think the other thing that we look at too is process improvement. So innovation doesn't always have to be the giant big I.
No.
It really is found in day-to-day small innovations, small improvements. And really, I think that's probably what we've seen over the course of the last 10 months is like we've improved small things, or we've made changes to small things that add up to really a large I.
Yeah.
So that's really, I think continuing to use design thinking, continuing to allow our employees to serve up the ideas. I've always said it's very dangerous when the executive committee is coming up with all the new ideas. It really is. I mean, I think if you rely on 12 people to come up with all the new stuff, then that's just 12 people's ideas. I think relying on ideas from all aspects of the organization, from all aspects of not only our industry, but looking at other industries and what they're doing and how they're doing it, really makes us a better retailer in the long run.
Yeah, so for example, the decision to have your innovation center here in Pittsburgh, which we're very glad to have, but you're right in the same area as Google, as some of the autonomous vehicle operations. Was that intentional as well?
It was absolutely intentional. It's only about 2 hours west of our corporate location. So close enough that, we could be there in no time.
Yeah.
But also, we're right in the middle of where innovation is happening in the country. And so we wanted to take advantage of that. There's some really exciting things going on at Carnegie Mellon University, at the University of Pittsburgh. And so why not tap into those resources, which are literally in our backyard?
Right.
Great. Well, Stephanie, I also see, and from knowing you, you're very active in early childhood education and on the governor's committee for early learning investment. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Why that is an interest, and what impact you expect to have?
So about 12 years ago, I was invited to be on the governor's early learning commission because of my role in HR with a large employer, Sheetz. Over those 12 years, it's become a true passion of mine, and it's really twofold. First, it's in my role as thinking about the future of work and the future of business. Children that are 5 years old today will be in the workforce in about 10 or 11 years, so that's not really a lot of time. So I'm thinking about the future workforce, but also as a mom, I want every child to have the same opportunities that my children have had. And really the investment in early learning is around understanding that when you set children up for success early, and when I say early, I really mean from birth to age 5.
Yep.
The research has shown that they are truly able to be amazing, contributing citizens of the Commonwealth and of the United States. So when you set children up early with success, it really reaps rewards in the form of a prepared workforce. It sets us up with less people that are incarcerated later in life, and it increases their earning potential over their lifetime, which ends up really fueling the economy. There's so many significant wins out of investing early with children.
Yep.
What I've learned from the neuroscientists is that 90% of the child's brain is developed by the age of 5.
Yep.
So waiting to start at kindergarten is honestly too late. We have to set children up for success by starting at birth all the way up to the time where they're entering more traditional school at kindergarten. And businesses have to be, you have to be involved in this because it really is the future workforce. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, that's okay. My daughter is an early childhood educator, and she's a teaching artist, and she works with, she says 0 to 5-year-olds, but she prefers working with the zeros. But it's just the same point what she's learned and what she's taught me about early development and how critical it is for later on.
Yeah, it's a business imperative, quite frankly, and my job has been to educate other business leaders on understanding this is not just a social component. This is really a business imperative. Mm-hmm. And so helping other business leaders to see the research and the data, it becomes very compelling for business to be involved in ensuring children have quality early learning.
Yes, great. And has the committee or any discussion about when we've had to move to a whole different learning model recently because of COVID? Any insights or thoughts about what that means for the future as well?
Well, there's some major concerns because many child care centers have had to close with just the complete upheaval with what's happening with work. Lots of people were not sending their kids to childcare during this pandemic, which has forced many child care centers to close, which is a huge concern for when we are back operational. There won't be enough supply, if you will, of quality early learning centers for the workforce. And so some huge concerns. We're working now with the governor in Pennsylvania to ensure there are continuing to be dollars invested in quality early learning centers. Across Pennsylvania, there are many, and across the United States, not just Pennsylvania, what they call child care deserts, which means there just isn't enough quality care. So really looking for a private-public partnership to ensure we have the right amount and the right quality into the future as our economy continues to rebound from this pandemic.
Great. Well, thank you.
Which is always the greatest challenge about a stressful time. It's, while we're in the middle of it, we can kind of deal with it. The after effects are where things become challenging.
Almost post-traumatic, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, we could go on talking all morning, and so maybe we need to have you back on the cafe sometime, but we've really enjoyed you taking the time with us. One thing, and you've touched on several of these things, but one thing we've been asking consistently, on the cafe is, there's been a lot of focus on what the challenges of 2020 have done to us. But we like to switch it around and say, well, what has the current social and business challenges done for you? Any additional thoughts around that?
I love how you've reframed it, Michael, because I think we've been trying to reframe it at Sheetz as well. I think what it's done for us is just shown how resilient and strong our culture is.
Yes.
And it's really shown that our leaders have grit and the importance of ensuring that we're giving future leaders the opportunity to develop resilience and grit. And so, this has been a horrible time, but there have been so many learnings. So how do you take those learnings and move them forward and then share them with future leaders so that they can be ready for the next challenges that are to come?
Great. Well, thank you for that. So is there, where can folks go to find out more about Sheetz and maybe sign up to become a Sheetz freak?
Sure. So we have our website, www.sheetz.com, or you can just Google Sheetz and you'll find a lot of really great stories about what we're doing in our communities and what we do for our employees. Or if you happen to be in one of the 6 states that we operate, please visit us and get to see it firsthand.
And download your Sheetz app.
Please download the Sheetz app.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Well,
Well,
Stephanie,
thank you.
we want to thank you again for joining us. It's been great, as Michael said, having you and so many great ideas that you shared. I've written down a bunch of them. So while I'm supposed to be listening, I'm taking notes as well. So thank you for all of these great things. As a guest, we want to send you a signed copy of our book, Strategy Driven Leadership. You can see just a few of the copies behind you, behind Michael's screen there. We also want to thank our sponsor, Vaco, for helping make the Leadership Cafe an important place for us to visit with some of our most successful C-suite leaders like Stephanie Doliveira. Remember, you can listen to this on Michael's website as well as mine and on the Vaco website, vaco.com. You also see them posted on LinkedIn, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast. We also want to make sure we thank our producer director extraordinaire, Michelle Jarzowski, for providing us with her amazing support week in and week out on these. And for all of us on the Leadership Cafe, thanks for joining in. I'm Richard Citron.
And I'm Michael Couch, and we look forward to connecting with you on the next Leadership Cafe.